Today's story is massive because a major voice in sports media just said something that has the entire basketball world exploding with debate. Colin Cowherd went on national television and delivered a statement so bold that fans, analysts, and even league insiders are still reacting to it right now. For years on this channel, we've been saying the same thing over and over again. Caitlin Clark is not just another talented player. She is a once-in-a-generation superstar, changing the entire landscape of women's basketball. And now, one of the biggest names in sports media is finally echoing that exact sentiment publicly. Cowherd didn't hold back either. He directly questioned how Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White has been handling the biggest attraction women's basketball has ever seen. And he wasn't alone in speaking up. During Sunday night's broadcast, NBC reporter Kate Scott also pushed back hard against the constant criticism surrounding Caitlin Clark's turnovers, exposing what many fans believe has become an unfair narrative driven by critics desperate to downplay her dominance. For nearly 3 seasons, traditional media voices, longtime basketball gatekeepers, and outspoken figures like Cheryl Reeve have scrutinized every aspect of Clark's game. Every missed shot gets analyzed, every turnover becomes a headline, every emotional reaction gets magnified. But while the criticism keeps coming, the numbers continue telling a completely different story. Caitlin Clark is dominating this league. She's putting together MVP level performances night after night, leading offenses, controlling games, and producing historic stat lines that are forcing sportsbooks and analysts to completely rethink their preseason expectations. Right now, she looks like the clear frontrunner for the 2026 WNBA MVP award. And honestly, very few teams have found an answer for her. Actually, there may only be one thing capable of slowing her momentum down, and that concern starts inside her own organization. In my opinion, Stephanie White is still not fully unleashing Caitlin Clark the way a generational talent should be utilized. It feels like watching someone drive a Formula 1 race car through city traffic with the speed capped. But before we get deeper into that discussion, we need to talk about the statement Colin Cowherd made, because it completely shifted the conversation around Caitlin Clark's legacy trajectory. Cowherd explained that Clark, now in her 3rd WNBA season in 2026, has already rewritten parts of the history books. Coming off another huge performance with more than 20 points and double-digit assists, she once again controlled the entire pace of the game from start to finish. Defenses were scrambling, teammates were feeding off her energy, the entire offense revolved around her presence on the court. Then Cowherd addressed the comparison everyone has used since Clark entered the league: Stephen Curry. At first glance, the comparison makes sense. The logo threes, the deep shooting range, the flashy ball handling, the confidence from anywhere on the floor. There are definitely similarities to Curry's style, but Cowherd argued that the comparison no longer goes far enough. According to him, Caitlin Clark is not simply the women's version of Steph Curry. He said she's Michael Jordan. That statement instantly shook the sports world. Cowherd wasn't talking strictly about play style either. He was talking about impact, influence, cultural power, the ability to completely transform a sport and bring millions of new eyes to the game. That is the level he believes Clark has already reached. And honestly, when you watch moments like her late game heroics against the Seattle Storm, it becomes easier to understand why people are starting to think this way. In crunch time, with defenders collapsing around her and the pressure at its highest point, Clark stepped into a deep three-pointer and buried it without hesitation. That is superstar behavior. That is the kind of fearless confidence basketball legends are built on. Cowherd then laid out a fascinating historical comparison. When Michael Jordan first entered the NBA, he immediately became one of the league's biggest attractions. Fans were captivated by him from day one. Then in his 2nd season, injuries disrupted his momentum and temporarily slowed his rise. But by year 3, Jordan exploded into another universe statistically, forcing the basketball world to recognize that they were witnessing an all-time great in real time. However, even Jordan needed help before championships became reality. Eventually, Scottie Pippen arrived and helped elevate the Chicago Bulls into a true dynasty. Now look at Caitlin Clark's situation in 2026. The parallels are becoming impossible to ignore. She arrived in the WNBA like a supernova, instantly becoming the biggest attraction in the sport and turning every arena into must-watch television. Her rookie season felt larger than basketball itself. Then came year 2, where injuries and physical setbacks interrupted both her momentum and the stability of the Indiana Fever as a whole. But now in 2026, during her 3rd season, Caitlin Clark is once again putting up elite numbers at an unbelievable level, and somehow the criticism still hasn't stopped. The doubters keep shifting the conversation every time she proves them wrong. First, they questioned whether her game would translate to the professional level. Then they questioned whether she could handle the physicality. Now the talking point has evolved into something else entirely. When will she win big in the playoffs? Why hasn't she led Indiana on a deep postseason run yet? Colin Cowherd completely dismantled that argument. His point was simple: Caitlin Clark is not lacking talent around her. In fact, she already has an elite co-star beside her in Kelsey Mitchell, one of the most dangerous scorers in the league, and a player who has absolutely earned recognition in MVP conversations herself. This is not about criticizing the Fever roster. It is about understanding that Caitlin has officially moved beyond the young rising star phase of her career. Expectations are now operating at an entirely different level. Cowherd used a brilliant comparison from the music world to explain it. He compared Clark's rookie season to Taylor Swift's debut album, a breakout moment that instantly captured attention and made everyone stop and ask, "Who is this?" But then came Fearless, the album that transformed Swift from a promising young artist into a global superstar dominating stadiums around the world. That, according to Cowherd, is where Caitlin Clark is heading now. The basketball world is waiting for her Fearless era, and honestly, you can understand why the expectations are so massive. We've all watched the logo threes, the impossible shooting range, the passes that seem to bend reality, and the confidence she plays with every single night. Her style naturally reminds people of Stephen Curry, but Cowherd argued that her long-term path points towards something even bigger. Not just highlight plays, not just MVP trophies, dynasty-level greatness, the type of dominance associated with Michael Jordan, multiple championships, a global brand, a player who completely changes the popularity and financial future of an entire league. But Cowherd also made one thing very clear: reaching that level requires more than individual brilliance. It requires the right structure around her, the right teammate chemistry, and most importantly, the right coaching leadership. And that comment felt like a direct challenge aimed squarely at Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White. Cowherd essentially argued that while Caitlin Clark already possesses superstar talent and an elite backcourt partner in Kelsey Mitchell, Indiana may still be missing the strategic mastermind needed to maximize this era. In other words, Clark needs her version of Phil Jackson, a coach capable of managing greatness without limiting it, because right now many fans believe the current system is restricting her instead of fully unleashing her. Sunday's game against the Seattle Storm only intensified that conversation. Viewers immediately noticed tension developing on the sideline, especially late in the first quarter. Indiana had built a comfortable lead, and the offense was flowing beautifully. Clark appeared fully in rhythm, directing teammates and organizing possessions on the floor. Then, with just over 30 seconds remaining in the quarter, Stephanie White pulled her from the game during an active sequence. The reaction instantly caught attention. As Clark headed toward the bench, cameras appeared to capture visible frustration during an exchange with White. Several courtside reporters and online creators later broke down the interaction frame by frame, arguing that the moment reflected a much deeper issue brewing beneath the surface. According to many fans, there seems to be an ongoing battle over control of the offense. When Clark wants the pace pushed aggressively, the coaching staff appears to slow things down. When she tries creating chaos with quick transition opportunities, the system often redirects towards safer half-court execution. Critics of White believe the coaching approach is too restrictive for a player with Clark's instincts and creativity, and fans have started noticing another detail that continues fueling debate. Whenever Clark hits one of those electrifying, momentum-changing three-pointers, Stephanie White often remains emotionally reserved on the sideline. But when the offense settles into more traditional inside scoring or structured sets, the visible approval becomes much more animated. Whether intentional or not, that contrast has become a major talking point among Fever fans, many of whom are beginning to wonder if Indiana is truly embracing the unique superstar sitting right in front of them. The body language alone tells the story. Fans are not imagining the tension anymore. The constant second guessing, the visible frustration on the sidelines, and the lack of freedom within the offense have become impossible to ignore. To many viewers, it feels less like empowering a superstar and more like trying to control one. And if we are making honest basketball comparisons, many fans do not see Stephanie White as a Phil Jackson-style coach capable of maximizing a once-in-a-generation player. The comparison being thrown around more often is Doc Rivers, a respected veteran coach who consistently lands talented rosters but struggles to fully unlock elite offensive systems built for modern stars. That is the growing concern surrounding Indiana right now. Caitlin Clark thrives in chaos, pace, creativity, and instinct. She is at her most dangerous when she can improvise, attack quickly, and manipulate defenses before they even have time to react. But critics believe Indiana's current structure often slows that natural rhythm down instead of amplifying it. Compare that to what Lisa Bluder built at Iowa. Bluder understood exactly how Clark's basketball mind operated. She never tried to shrink her game or force her into traditional boundaries. Instead, she created an offense entirely centered around Clark's strengths, allowing her vision, shooting range, and tempo to completely overwhelm opponents. The result was one of the most explosive and entertaining styles college basketball has ever witnessed. That is why some fans have become increasingly vocal about the Fever front office making a dramatic move. There are people who genuinely believe Indiana should do everything possible to convince Lisa Bluder to return to coaching because of the chemistry and trust already established between them. Others argue that if Bluder is unavailable, the organization needs a commanding basketball mind with superstar credibility, someone like Cheryl Miller, who could instantly command respect while embracing Clark's unique style of play. Because at the moment, many supporters feel Indiana's coaching approach is creating unnecessary limitations around its biggest superstar. Still, basketball has a funny way of revealing the truth once the game actually begins. And despite all the outside noise, the final result against Seattle spoke loudly. According to the official box score from the 17th of May 2026, the Indiana Fever defeated the Offenera Seattle Storm 8-9 78 inches a game that carried enormous pressure before tip-off even happened. Earlier that day, Indiana learned that star center Aaliyah Boston would be unavailable due to a lower leg injury, leaving a major hole in the lineup and placing even more responsibility on Caitlin Clark's shoulders. The moment demanded leadership, and Clark delivered exactly that. She controlled the game from start to finish, slicing apart Seattle's defense while recording 21 points, 7 rebounds, and 10 assists for the 21st double-double of her career. Beyond the raw numbers, she dictated the entire pace of the matchup, creating scoring opportunities for everyone around her and keeping Indiana's offense alive. Possession after possession. She wasn't just scoring, she was orchestrating everything. And that performance only made another storyline surrounding the game feel even stranger. Before tip-off, league coverage heavily promoted rookie guard Raven Johnson, Indiana's number 10 overall pick out of South Carolina, highlighting her toughness and defensive potential. Johnson played 17 minutes off the bench, but finished the night scoreless across the stat sheet. That contrast immediately became a talking point online. Fans questioned why so much energy was spent elevating role players and secondary narratives, while Caitlin Clark continued producing superstar performances at a historic level. To many viewers, it feels like the league sometimes struggles to fully embrace the player generating massive ratings, sold-out arenas, and non-stop national attention. And while debate exploded online, NBC broadcaster Kate Scott stepped in during the live telecast to address one of the biggest criticisms constantly used against Clark: turnovers. Scott argued that social media conversations often ignore the full context of Clark's role within Indiana's offense. Critics focus heavily on turnover totals without acknowledging the extraordinary workload she carries as the primary creator, playmaker, and offensive engine every single night. Then Scott made a comparison that instantly grabbed attention. She referenced NBA stars known for elite playmaking to show how turnovers naturally rise when players are responsible for creating nearly everything offensively. Nikola Jokic, one of the best passers in basketball and a multiple-time MVP, averages around 10 assists while also committing several turnovers per game. Cade Cunningham, another high-usage creator, produces strong assist numbers alongside similar turnover totals. The point was simple. High-level playmakers take risks. And when a player constantly pushes defenses, creates difficult passing angles, and carries the responsibility of generating offense for an entire team, turnovers are often part of the package. But according to Scott, focusing only on those mistakes while ignoring the historic production beside them creates a completely misleading narrative around Caitlin Clark's game. Kate Scott looked at the numbers, looked at the criticism surrounding Caitlin Clark, and basically told the basketball world to relax for a second. Her point was simple and rooted in common sense. When a player handles the ball on nearly every possession, runs the offense, creates shots for teammates, and constantly attacks defenses late in the shot clock, turnovers are naturally going to come with that responsibility. That is the reality for elite playmakers. If your entire offensive system depends on one player generating opportunities out of thin air, mistakes are going to happen along with the brilliance. You cannot demand creativity, pace, and aggressive playmaking while expecting zero risk attached to it. During the broadcast, her co-host, Lachina Robinson, even joked about how dangerous it is to spend time reading social media comments these days. But by that point, the message had already landed. Analysts who truly understand basketball can see the bigger picture immediately. A lot of the criticism aimed at Caitlin Clark feels disconnected from the actual role she plays on the floor. The old school critics and constant media narratives keep searching for flaws, but the numbers continue proving that Clark is operating at an elite level while carrying one of the heaviest offensive workloads in the league. Players with that level of responsibility are always going to live with higher turnover totals because they are constantly attempting difficult, high-value plays. And honestly, the bigger issue may not even be Caitlin Clark herself. It may be the system surrounding her. Right now, it feels like the Indiana Fever have been handed one of the most dynamic, offensive talents women's basketball has ever seen, yet they are still trying to fit her into a structure that does not fully maximize her strengths. It is like owning a Ferrari and refusing to ever take it out of second gear. Clark's game is built for speed, freedom, creativity, and pressure. She needs an offense designed to fully unleash her instincts, not one that constantly pulls back the reins. The truly legendary coaches throughout basketball history understood this concept. When generational superstars arrive, you build around what makes them special instead of forcing them into rigid systems that limit their ceiling. That is why this conversation around Indiana's coaching situation keeps growing louder. Fans are starting to wonder whether the Fever are fully prepared to maximize the prime years of a player who could eventually become one of the defining icons in basketball history. That is all for today, family. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay locked in for more deep dives into the biggest basketball stories dominating the sports world right now. Appreciate every single one of you for supporting the channel. Catch you in the next video. Take care, everybody.